Ladies and gentlemen,
wrestling has more than one royal family.
I am my kingdom! I am my kingdom! Welcome to the okayest podcast on the planet. Welcome to Kingdom of Honor. This is your host, Zanman Shane Sabunia, the expatriate, along with my buddy Jeff. How's it going, Jeff? How's it going, Jeff? Jeff appears to have dropped his microphone or his headset or something, and he's making all kinds of staticky sounds. He's doing maybe the African click language thing going on.
That's my second language.
Oh, good. I'm glad I didn't even know you had a first language yet, so I'm happy to hear that.
Well, yeah, all right, that's fine. So, anyway, I didn't hear a greeting or anything, and I had a child screaming at me from the other room, so I had to go take care of that.
I see. Yeah. We just figured that you had dropped your headset in shock. So.
In shock of what?
Or
what did I miss?
Or in protest of me saying that it was the okayest podcast on the planet again.
Oh, that you did that last week, and the shock value wasted. I'm over it now. Awesome. I'm no longer in shock about it being the okayest show in the world.
Okay. Not in the world, on the planet. We're not in the world.
Okay.
We don't live in the core of the earth or anything.
Yeah, but we don't live on the top of the atmosphere either.
Well, let's work on that.
All right.
So this week, folks, we're going to talk to you about what we were planning on talking about last week, Fyter Fest, and then we'll also do a preview of Fight for the Fallen. But first, just a quick, I think just a brief word about something that we've been talking about doing for a while, just because we're kind of the halfway point of the year, and we were thinking about doing a special where we would kind of preview our awards for this year, maybe do half-year awards, but we have so much wrestling coming up and so much to review that I think just doing it piecemeal is probably going to be the best way to do it. And so I'm just going to say right off the top of the bat, especially after seeing his performances in the last week or so, just cementing it in my mind is that the guy we've been talking about having a Twitter war with Seth Rollins for a couple of weeks now is still at the top of my list as being not only the wrestler of the year so far, but also, in my opinion, the best wrestler on the planet right now, and that is Will Ospreay.
Well, his Twitter war ended. Seth Rollins came out and apologized and said that he was out of line, and Ospreay accepted his apology, and they all made up and they're lovey-lovey again. But
well,
I mean,
in the Edge of Christian show, he said it wasn't even that big a deal in the first place. So.
No, not for him. I mean, it was more Seth Rollins looking like an idiot than anything else. But
it was, and I think it's boring that he wouldn't apologize. I'm guessing that was partly influenced by his corporation.
Maybe, or it might be the fact that he realized that he was being an asshole and decided. I mean, he could just be a good guy who realized he was being a jerk. And once he started bringing paychecks into it, that's when it crossed lines. And just realized that, decided to be the bigger guy and come out and apologize. Who knows? Who cares? Who cares? It's over. It was a lot. It was something fun to talk about for a couple of weeks. And it's over. So you're right. I mean, I had up until today, actually, because I watched Will Ospreay versus Robbie Eagles this morning, and then this afternoon I watched Will Ospreay versus Lance Archer, and those two solidified him as the best wrestler in the world in my eyes. He is my number one for Wrestler of the Year so far this year. And before that, I mean, it was a cross. There were 3 or 4 guys that could have held that mantle. But just the tear that Ospreay is on right now, there's nobody better.
Totally agree. And you know, the other guys that are kind of in my top area are Kota Ibushi's probably right behind Ospreay. Cody, even though he's only had 3 matches this year, which makes it hard for me to make him my number one, you know, wrestler of the year. And also right up there is Matt Riddle, who I think has been absolutely sensational in his big spotlight matches. I still hate the gimmick. I still want to punch him when he's coming down to the ring, but once that you know the bell rings and he's in there performing, it's hard for there to be anybody much better than him. He's kind of my new Cesaro. You know, I said like 5 or 6 years ago that when Cesaro's wrestling, I know that there are better wrestlers in the world than him. But when he's wrestling at his best, it's hard for me to think of who they could possibly be. And I think that's where Matt Riddle kind of falls for me right now.
See, and for me, Matt Riddle's up there. I still think he might be the second best wrestler in NXT behind Johnny Gargano. But
well, you know my problems with Gargano.
Yeah, but Matt Riddle is definitely up.
Yeah, you have serious ass Gargano problems.
Yeah, I've never seen that show, so I don't know what you're talking about. But Matt Riddle still to me is second in NXT, but I am very impressed. Every time he comes out to the ring, he impresses me more, and it all started with his Drew Gulak match earlier this year. You've also got, like you'd said, there was Will Ospreay is far and away the number. After that, there's still are having great years. It's hard to really. I don't think I can put Cody now in my 10. Seth Rollins is up there. He's hell of the year again, just last year.
No WWE star will get into my list.
Well, yeah, because you don't get any of it. So I'm going to make your list. I watch it occasionally, so they can make mine. Haha.
Yeah, this is not about the WWE.
No, it's not. And last year it wasn't either, but Seth Rollins made both our lists last year. So, but regardless.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
False.
Yeah, he did. Do we need to pull it up? Go to Patreon. www.patreon.com/King of Honor and listen to our from last year, and Seth Rollins is in there in the Wrestler of the Year.
That's how that's done, Jeff.
He may not have made the final 5, but he was definitely in the conversation. I've also got Sam who's having a hell of a the funny part about Tom Lawler is last year he was in my conversation, at least in the conversation for the top 10. This year he isn't even anywhere close. Last year he was probably the best, maybe second best thing in MLW. This year he is. I don't care if he's on TV or not, even though he's the champion. So it's that's a whole other issue.
Right.
Yes, I will get you chocolate milk.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know how I'm going to drink it from you, but I do appreciate the offer.
Big straw. Very, very, very big straw. And I can't think of who else is in my top 5. Right before we went on air, we had a meltdown here, and I started crying because I wasn't getting my way, and my Lego fire truck fell apart. So, I had a little meltdown, and yeah, I'm still kind of shaken by it. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, fair enough. And for those who haven't seen the 2 matches Jeff talked about earlier, and that I mentioned in passing but didn't name, really, there were 3 matches I've watched in the last couple of days that are in my running for not necessarily the matches of the year, but my favorite matches of the year. And 2 of them involve Ospreay. Ospreay taking on both Robbie Eagles at Southern Showdown and taking on Lance Archer at yesterday's G1 Climax, or excuse me, Saturday's G1 Climax. And then there's also once again, Zack Sabre Jr. and Sonata put on a clinic against each other in the G1.
I haven't seen that match yet, so
This one ended up being about twice as long as last year's, but no less fun for all of that, and I absolutely love that one as well.
I will say, considering Will Ospreay was one of my picks, I've got 4 guys that I can legitimately see winning this thing, and Ospreay was one of them. To see him lose in the first round, that kind of shook me a little bit. I did not see him giving up a clean pin for Lance Archer. Lance Archer looks like a beast now that he's split from KES. No more Davey Boy. He's got to do it on his own, and he just looks... he frightens me even more now. He looked really good. He added a lot of new moves to his repertoire. He had some things I'd never seen anybody of his size do before. So it looks like they might be pushing him pretty good this year. And to have him pull out a clean win over Ospreay, to me, was shocking considering the year Ospreay's had.
He's had a great year. On the other hand, he's also still considered a junior. And so I would be surprised if he goes and if he's in the mix for the block finals or anything. I do know that there's also my Fyter Fest Aftershock partner Imp does have Ospreay as his favorite for the tournament, but I just don't think. I just don't think that he's really going to be in that mix personally.
See, and I've got Ospreay. Jay White is my favorite. He's the guy that I think is actually going to win it all. He's my number one guy, but I seriously think Ospreay could win it. I seriously think this might be the year that they pull the trigger on Sonata for real, and I think Kota Ibushi is the other guy.
My hope of that has already fallen by the wayside.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I can't get behind Naito to win it, even though there's so many people picking him as their favorite. Why? He won it 2 years ago and went on and put on probably the worst match at Wrestle Kingdom that year. With Okada, it was one of the few Okada main events that wasn't very good. And he just completely failed in his little push there. So why would they go out and give it to him again? That was just 2 years ago. No, that was 3 years ago now, wasn't it? Yeah, 3. No, it was 2.
Wait, you're talking about the Wrestle Kingdom match? You didn't like that match?
No, I didn't. I mean, when you looked at the rest of the card, that was probably... I'm not saying it was a horrible match, but when it comes to Wrestle Kingdom standards, and even that one alone, I think 90% of the other matches on that card were better than it.
Well, 90% is a huge stretch, but definitely Jericho versus... Omega was better than it, but I don't think there was much else on that card that was better.
I'm remembering it differently, but then again, too, it was also 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and a lot of it.
And the other thing is that with it is that you were one of the few that didn't think that Naito was winning it, and so you didn't. So it kind of went exactly the way you thought it was going to go.
Right.
Whereas a lot of people, including myself, went in there thinking that Naito was going to win the championship.
See, and unfortunately, I didn't buy into him winning from the start, and I thought it was because you could tell it was Kenny's belt. It was Kenny's belt for the taking, and it was going to come off Okada. And it just, to me, I didn't buy into Naito as being a legitimate contender there, or legitimate to uncrown him anyway. And then the fact that they've been such stop and start with Naito over the years, I just couldn't buy into him being a legitimate challenger, and that is a lot of the reason why it took me out of it. I know that a lot of people are banking on Naito to win the G1 again this year. I don't see it. I can't see them going to that well again. I honestly, I truly believe this is Jay White's tournament to lose.
See, I'm trying to think about this logically. So I'm looking at the way everything was going, and so the 4 guys that basically were in my mix are Jay White, Naito, Ibushi, and Okada. And then I look at this and I'm like, are they really going to do Jay White versus Okada for the second year in a row at Wrestle Kingdom? I don't think so. Naito is...
Why not? How many years in a row did they do Tanahashi versus Okada?
Yeah, but that was Tanahashi. I just don't think they're going to do it.
But
do it. Why?
He's
Well,
the
they haven't done it with Naito and Okada. They didn't do it with Omega and Okada. So I just don't see why they would do it with White and Okada.
well, they didn't do it with Omega and Okada because that would have been two main events in a row. This is different because it wasn't a main event last year. You've also got White, who is probably the hottest heel in the company, who is out making a shit ton of noise again, just like he did last year about this time. He's gearing himself up for a and he's now a legitimate contender after beating Okada last year. Granted, he lost to Okada at the G1 Supercard, but he did beat Okada last year. He had a title win under his belt, so I mean, he's a lot more legitimate of a guy to win that tournament and get a title shot than he was last year at this time.
Well, my other reasoning for it is simply that they've only ever had one Gaijin win the tournament, and that was Kenny Omega in 2016. So I just don't see they're going to do that well this quickly.
Well, I don't know. He's another leader of the Bullet Club. He's on the same, in their eyes. Now, I don't think he's the same wrestler. I think he's damn good. I think he's going to be one of the best in the world in the next couple of years. But he is on the cusp of being there, and right where Kenny Omega was at the time when Kenny won it. Kenny was wrestler in the world when he won the tournament. He became the best wrestler in the world after his showings with Okada.
I think a lot of it is I just simply lost faith in their push with him after the title without even defending it at G1 Supercard, and they put it right back on Okada, which I thought was terrible. So,
yeah, I still think that was a bad idea, but I think there are reasons why he's my odds-on favorite.
Ibushi is facing Okada in the finals of A Block, so to me that puts him out of there. I don't think they would do a rematch that quickly between the G1 Climax semifinals and Wrestle Kingdom. So really, until yesterday, Okada was my front runner, and he probably still is. But they talked about something interesting yesterday that kind of piqued my interest for Evil. Evil is somebody else, just like Sonata. They've kind of done a bunch of start and stop stuff with, but yesterday they talked about how Evil might be shopping, how he might be looking to leave LIJ now that basically he's become I guess superfluous with now the fact that Shingo has moved up to heavyweight. They've already got Sonata. He's kind of stuck behind Naito, and so Naito leaving then, going out on his own or joining Chaos or joining something else, and then winning the G1 to face Okada and you still have 4 months to build him up between G1.
I'm guessing you were trying to say Evil, not Naito.
I said he was stuck behind Naito. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that Naito was gearing. Never mind. Anyway, go on. Continue.
Yeah. So I think Evil is Okada is now a realistic possibility if he does in fact leave LIJ. I still think Okada is the most likely winner, though. Then it'll be the first time in 19 years that the reigning champion won G1 Climax. But I look at the role that Okada's on and the other choices that are out there, and so to me, I think he's probably the top choice right now.
I just don't buy it. I just don't see it. They don't do champions winning these tournaments very often. Not when there's
I just said it was 19
clear
years.
cut. What's that?
I just said it was 19 years.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying tournaments in general, like the the junior heavyweight or the G1 or Best of Super Juniors, the New Japan Cup, name it. They don't have champions win them very often. I mean, it does happen, but it's not very often, especially when there are clear-cut contenders out there that they can build up. I mean, what would it?
I mean,
well, there is.
Well, they're going. I do not have any faith that they're going to put Jay White in that position this soon. So then, who else is?
I have more faith in that than I do with Naito. And that seems to be everybody's hot pick is Naito to win it. I have more faith that they'd put their money on Jay White before they would Naito again. You've also got Kota
the
Ibushi.
only thing that holds me back from on Naito is that he's already the Intercontinental Champion. I don't think they're going to put two straps on him.
You've also got Kota Ibushi, who they've been building up all year long.
But again, he's facing Okada in the semifinals, so that doesn't make so I just don't see them blowing that. Blowing their wad on that match, then having it go again. That's
saying that Okada is the one who comes out of it.
Right.
And that's not. There's no saying that Okada. There's still people in the A block other than Okada and Ibushi. There are other people that could make that semifinal, and Okada not even make the semifinal.
Well, let me rephrase. It's not really a semifinal. It's just that's the last match
of the block. Yeah.
Of A block is Ibushi versus Okada. So the only way that I see you as a contender to win the G1 Climax is if I think that Okada's losing the championship before Wrestle Kingdom, and I don't think that's happening.
Why would he lose the championship? It's not on the line every single time he wrestles.
I'm just saying I don't see that they would do a main event of the A block final night. Ibushi versus Okada, which is already scheduled, and then 6 months later have them face off at Wrestle Kingdom.
Why not?
It was exactly the same reason I didn't think Ibushi was going to beat Tanahashi last year, because I didn't think they would do Ibushi versus Omega again 5 or 6 months later. Why not? Because that's just not the way this company does things.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't look at that as a predictor of who's going to win what. I mean, just because it's happens to be the last show or the last night in the tournament, it is 6 months from now. And if they're trying to build it up, why not? Why not have it in a way where Okada can get the win to plant doubt, but because of points, Ibushi is the one who moves on to the finals.
You really think they're gonna have Okada that far behind Ibushi?
It would only be 2 points.
No, it would be 3.
He would need to be 3 points behind, so he could end 1 point behind. But that's plausible. Have a couple of even if they were to have them him 1 point behind going into it, and they have a tie, they go to a time limit tie. That's 1 point apiece, and Ibushi wins the block by 1 point without actually beating Okada.
You're telling me a scenario that I would love to see, because I would love to see Ibushi versus Okada as the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. I just don't think it's happening.
No, I don't either, because I think Jay White's going to win the whole thing. But
that's not happening either.
I'm just saying that there are legitimate contenders that are out there that they don't have to have Okada win the tournament. There's 3 to 4 legitimate contenders that they could easily plug into that spot with enough build, with 6 months of build. All right, ramble for a few minutes.
On the other hand, then you've got, if you have Okada win the G1 Climax, then you have the opportunity to have him decide that what Chris Jericho did to him after he defeated Jericho at Dominion, how that beatdown has to be paid back, and has to be paid back on the biggest stage. So you have the opportunity then to have Kazuchika Okada challenge Chris Jericho to face him for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom, which possibly is the biggest match that you can do if you're New Japan right now. Again, and there's also the fact that Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley are also both in the running and both able to wrestle for New Japan at any time they want to as well. So you have the opportunity for Okada to win his block, win the G1, and then challenge either Jericho, Omega, or Moxley to be the one to face him for his championship at Wrestle Kingdom, which is a bigger match than really you can do against anybody else currently in the promotion right now.
Okay, we've already seen Jericho Okada, and
Right, but there was also Jericho beat him down right after Dominion.
yeah, I get that. So I can
which means there will be a rematch at some point.
It does make sense to have a rematch. Omega's not even in the company,
but part of his contract is that he can come back and wrestle for New Japan.
But he's also an executive, so he's not like it's not like he has all the time in the world to go and do stuff like that.
Okay.
And once TV starts and once they're doing their own thing, I don't see him having the kind of time to just go and show up at Wrestle Kingdom. And I can't remember the third guy you said. There's a reason why I didn't. Moxley. I just don't think Moxley is built for that. To be a main event at Wrestle Kingdom? No, absolutely not. I would see Jay White in the main event before I saw Moxley in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom.
Jay White will be in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom, but it won't be next year.
I can't see Moxley in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom right now. I just can't. I think that would be worse than having, in your eyes, and having Jay White. I think Jay White would have been good in that position last year.
No, he wasn't ready yet. He wasn't ready this year. And I think he would have been great this year if they had not decided to take the title off him right after he won it. He
was the hottest heel in the company at the time, and he proved in his match against Okada that he was ready for that spot. He could have easily been in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom last year. And I just think now this is his year. I think there's still Chaos Bullet Club. I think there's still unfinished business between the former members of Chaos and Okada. And I just think that there's some unfinished, that it's a story that writes itself. Okada's got to avenge his loss from last year's Wrestle Kingdom, and so on and so on.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's a well-built story. It's two guys that are ready for the spotlight because they've been there, and it's Jay White is the future of New Japan. As long as he stays, he's what we were saying Kenny Omega was 2 years ago.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just disagree. I just don't believe that New Japan is going to put him in that spot at this point. It's that simple.
I think it's more plausible than having Moxley come back or Moxley in there. To be honest.
Okay, agree to disagree. So let's move on.
And one thing that I know we got sidetracked there, but one thing I wanted to point out about the Ospreay Eagles match, it was very, very good to see Ospreay play the heel, and he showed that he could actually do a heel turn like you and I talked about him doing last year at the end of the year.
Thank you, because I meant to mention that earlier how good he did at playing the antagonist in that match. And,
yeah, he was great at it.
Yeah,
he was great.
That's part of what solidified it for me, is that he showed how great he could be in that antagonist role.
I mean, he played the swarmy heel that would do anything to win, and he also played to the crowd as a heel, which is something I've never seen out of Ospreay before. So it was nice to see. The other bigger picture is what's going on with Bullet Club. You had Robbie Eagles, who's a member of Bullet Club, who when Phantasmo started actually cheating, he had to put a stop to it.
Violently.
Yeah, violently, not just, and then handed the belt, like played the good guy throughout the whole thing. And I get it was his hometown, so him playing the good guy was the right call. But I think that there was a lot of little things that happened, like him, getting in the way of Phantasmo and causing Phantasmo to get kicked in the face, and then giving the belt back to the referee instead of using it. There was just a lot of things that were uncharacteristic of his character, and I'm interested to see where it's going to go from there, because I can't believe that they would just act like it never happened.
Well, no, they're not going to, and I think even looking at he didn't even wear his Bullet Club gear in that match.
No, he didn't. I noticed that too.
And the match itself and the aftermath, I think, set up both a Robbie Eagles versus El Phantasmo match for the British Junior Heavyweight Championship, and also El Phantasmo versus Will Ospreay for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship.
You think so?
I think we have both. I think we have both those matches to look forward to, if not a triple threat between the three of them at the upcoming. I can't think of the name of it. The one in Great Britain on August 30th.
Isn't that another G1?
No, it's a Rev Pro New Japan special.
I don't know.
Before we move on to EWS, I just want to say briefly that you and I had talked before about how we weren't going to buy any TNA pay-per-views shows until they changed their business model. Well, guess what, folks? They changed their business model. It's still $40 for a pay-per-view. However, by doing that, you now also get 3 months of Impact Plus free, which is $8 a month. So in essence, their pay-per-views are now $16. If you were already buying Impact Plus every month like we were. So we did buy Slammiversary. Neither one of us have watched it yet, but we will watch it this week and we will cover it for you on next week's show. And I did a Bash at the Brewery on Friday night. It is available on our YouTube channel at Kingdom of Honor. What is it? YouTube.com/Kingdom of Honor, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And you can so you can watch that. It's about I talked about Bash at the Brewery for about 15 minutes, and I previewed Slammiversary for about 15 minutes, and so you can watch that. That's probably the most we'll touch on Bash at the Brewery. Jeff hasn't had a chance to watch it yet because it failed all 6 times he tried to watch it on the service. But
yeah, it was brutal. It just kept pausing, and the part that upset me the most is I really wanted to see Steve Areno, and it was the match with the Rascals against Steve Areno and whoever else he was with. And it kept pausing, and I would have to fast forward at 30 seconds before it would start playing again, and then it would pause like a minute later, and it was unbearable. I couldn't watch it.
That means you also missed the North winning the tag team titles from LAX that night, too.
Well, yeah, I did. Thanks, fucktat. Maybe I wanted to see that.
Yeah. But that changed the Slammiversary tag team title match to a triple threat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on to Fyter Fest.
Oh, okay. We're timely with this one, aren't we?
Well, as timely as we're going to be for everything else coming up, because
fair enough.
There's just so goddamn much wrestling going on right now.
Yeah, that's why.
Slammiversary, we'll probably be covering Kings of the Coliseum next week, and we'll probably have to cover Fight for the Fallen the week after. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I don't know, and I thought about this last week when we spent the entire show breaking down one card. With so much going on, I honestly don't know if we can devote full shows to breaking down cards anymore. Like, pick bits and pieces and talk about the whole thing in general, but to go match by match, I just don't know with all that we watch and all that we want to cover, and to keep timely and everything, it's a great idea to break it down like that.
All right. Well, maybe what we should do then is pick the top 3 matches from each show.
Right. Or just,
talk
about it.
Talking points for the show.
Right, or just talk about it in general sense. I mean, we did it not that long ago where we talked about just because, to be honest, on this match or on this card, the first probably 5 matches are just, 4 matches are just kind of, it doesn't need to be a whole lot spent on them,
All right.
Yeah, first 4, because I don't think, that first match on the pre-show with Best Friends, SoCal Uncensored, and Private Party was a fun match. I'm confused why Dark Order came out the way they did.
Well, because they're setting up a feud with Best Friends.
Right, but what does it matter? It just wasn't that. All they did was come out, and the minions surrounded the ring, and then the minions left.
first of all, it keeps them in mind that they exist and they're out there, and um, that the Dark Order is a thing. Secondly, it plays with some mind games with best friends, and thirdly, it shows that they're targeting those two, and there's a program coming up between those two teams. So I don't think it was a bad move at all.
I don't know. I just think that if they were going to surround,
not everything has to be physicality.
Yeah, then you don't surround the ring. You cut a promo on the at the top of the stage or something.
Well, that's not creepy and scary.
Neither is surrounding the ring with no payoff. I disagree.
Because then you never know when they're coming or what they're going to do.
You never know when the minions are coming.
They're not minions. We're not talking about fucking Despicable Me.
Okay, henchmen are coming.
I don't know. I liked it. I like everything about the Dark Order's presentation so far.
I do too.
And even if I didn't, I'd be willing to see where it would go instead of nitpicking every single thing that they do. Like we said, we weren't going to do anymore.
No, I'm not nitpicking it. I'm just saying I didn't particularly that part. I did that was necessarily good storytelling without having a payoff for a tag team that has taken a completely different direction from what every one of us knows of Super Smash Brothers, and they're promoting themselves to a new audience. So you've got this essentially brand new tag team that didn't even show up. They just sent out their henchmen to stare at the guys in the ring before the henchmen left. To me, it wasn't that. It didn't do much. It didn't do much to progress a storyline. It didn't do much to make the Dark Order seem something special. It just was there. To me, it was unnecessary, and that's not nitpicking. That's just that angle. Just to me, didn't get what they were planning on getting out of it, I guess, or what I think they were planning on getting. It would have been better had it been, instead of the henchmen, when the lights came on the second time, maybe the henchmen were gone, and both members of the Dark Order were standing there instead. They didn't have to make it physical, but they could have at least made a presence. They didn't even make a presence on the show. It was just their henchmen.
Right, but it was also kind of like a spooky, mystical thing about how their henchmen could appear out of nowhere and then disappear out of nowhere as well. So you never know what's coming and what to expect.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess that one we're going to disagree on. I didn't. It was a.
And the fact there wasn't a payoff on the show does not mean there's not going to be a payoff. It just means they're playing the long game.
Well, and what I'm saying is it's not like it was John Moxley who showed up and disappeared, or The Undertaker who showed up and disappeared. These are two guys putting a new character forth that, granted, this Dark Order character is something that, and I can't remember the guy's name. What are their names?
I don't remember.
Super Smash Brothers. I know that one of them was Player Uno and Player Dos.
Yeah, I don't think it's called anymore, though.
Let's see. I think he is still Uno, though. Evil Uno is what he is now.
And Stu Grayson.
And Stu Grayson, yeah. Who used to be Player 2. So, it just, they're reinventing these guys with new names and new personas. They're kind of just throwing it in there. I mean, for people that actually know who these guys are, you know them as Super Smash Brothers, them as a much funner, uplifting tag team, not this Dark Order that they're doing now. So they're reinventing this tag team, and they're throwing it out there with people that have no clue who these guys are. I mean, most people don't even know who the Super Smash Brothers are. So
right.
it just seemed like
Super Smash Brothers are establishing new characters.
But at least as knowing who Smash Brothers are, you know how talented these guys are. I'm seeing is from them is a couple of promos if you watch Being the Elite, and go up a couple of times. The first time, at least, they beat down Best Friends. But then the second time, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Except for they're intimidating the best friends.
Yeah, by your henchmen. Henchmen are intimidating them, not Evil Uno and Stu Grayson.
The henchmen can be intimidating. That's fine. I mean, they're still being led by the Dark Order. Just because the Dark Order wasn't actually there does not mean that they weren't the ones that set them out.
I just think it was poorly executed. That's my own thing. I mean, that's just me. That's just me and what I thought. I didn't necessarily like it. Oh, the match itself was great. I enjoyed Private Party. I think they're a very fun tag team.
Yeah, they are.
Really green, but they're really good.
See, I thought what you were trying to say is that you would enjoy a Private Party with the best friends.
Well, that too.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I mean, the song "Pro" is still they. Is it just me, or was the crowd really, really into the best friends?
Yeah, they were.
Like even more so than SCU.
Oh yeah, because SCU is kind of, you and I have talked before, but I've never been as the fan of SCU that I think that you are and other people I've talked to are.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is I just don't get behind this guy. So.
See, and I think he's the standout right now. I think Athletic is out.
Yeah, he's athletic, but what is he special? There's lots of athletic guys in the world.
I don't know. I guess I'll just have to watch more of his matches to find out, to prove you wrong. And I was right before. There are 5 matches, and one of them I didn't care about when it came on. I didn't care about as it left, and it makes me sad because I really like Allie and I really like this librarian thing, but I could give 2 shits and a shake less than Allie for Allie versus Leva Bates. Did not care, didn't watch it, don't even know who won.
Allie won.
Okay.
With the BSE.
Yep, but that's all I needed.
But but the entire thing was really about the librarian gimmick and how terrible it is so far. So I don't know if they're trying to make it terrible so they can break out one of these people from it, or if it's just really failing. But I think that the librarian gimmick is pretty awful to this point.
Oh, it's terrible, but I think that's part of the allure to it, is because that's what they said from the beginning, was that it was a terrible gimmick and they were only doing it because Tony Khan wanted it.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess we'll see where it goes. I find it humorous at points, embarrassing at other points, but humorous at points. So I'm still in on it. I want to see Peter Avalon maybe break out of it and become his own character again, because I think he's better than that. But it is what it is for now, and I'm enjoying that. I hate to say this, but I actually did enjoy the Madawa hardcore match.
It was fun. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was fun.
I like the body lotion, or the body oil, baby oil spot. that was fun. That was entertaining. But it was entertaining, especially when the referee started slipping on it later. The callback to it was when the referee slipped on it.
Sure. I assume that I'm sure that you liked the old jock.
No, that was dumb.
Mandible claw spot too.
Yeah, no, that was horrible. That was terrible. I'm just saying that I did enjoy parts of that match.
I hated the baby oil thing in the Royal Battle Royal, and I hated the baby oil thing in this match. I think it has no place in pro wrestling to have a guy throw baby oil on himself so he's super slippery. It's just fucking ridiculous.
No, tell that to Joey Ryan, who's been doing it for 3 years.
Should be disqualification.
And Joey Ryan's been doing it for years.
Not the same way.
Not making himself slippery with it, but putting the baby oil on.
Yeah, in his pants. Big deal.
Well, he also has an illegal weapon in his pants, so there's that.
How's the grip on that thing anyway, Jeff?
I don't know. haven't gotten that far.
What do you think of the women's match? The Rio versus Nyla Rose versus Yuka Sakazaki match?
Didn't see it. Had no interest in it.
You didn't watch this fucking card or what?
I didn't watch these 2 matches. I had no interest in the women's matches, and I was watching this live with a toddler, so it was a little difficult. I had to pick and choose some of the stuff to watch.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Why didn't you have any interest in this match?
I just didn't have any interest. I from what I've seen about the three characters, I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them. I'm not a fan of Nyla Rose. I'm not a fan of Rio. What I've seen from Yuka, I'm not a fan of her. It was one of those matches where I just didn't have a horse in the ring, so I didn't care.
See, this is funny because, you've been getting me more into female wrestling, and now the two women's matches on this show, you have absolutely zero interest in.
It's because of the players. I don't enjoy the people that... I mean, I enjoy Allie. I kind of like what Leva Bates' character is, but I don't enjoy Leva Bates. I've never liked her.
You weren't a big fan of Blue Pants in NXT?
No. Couldn't stand it. Drove me insane. One of the worst gimmicks I've ever seen.
And yet you were a fan of fucking Dillinger.
Ty Dillon was a good gimmick.
No. It ruined WWE wrestling matches.
No, it did not.
It did.
No, it didn't ruin them any more than Diamond Dallas Page doing the exact same thing 20 years earlier.
What the fuck
Literally.
are you talking about? When did Diamond Dallas Page go out there yelling 10 every 10 seconds?
Do you not remember when before Kimberly was his partner, before she became the Booty Babe, she used to hold up 10 cards. That's the whole reason he started with the whole, 10 fingers out to go into the Diamond Cutter sign, was because he was calling a 10 for the move that he made.
Okay, and did you hear the crowd every time there was a countout going on yell 10, or every time somebody was standing in the corner getting punched in the face, then yelling 10 for every count?
No, because
you didn't.
He wasn't over with that gimmick like Dillinger was.
Dillinger wasn't over with the gimmick. The gimmick was over. Dillinger wasn't.
Oh, I think you're going to be... I think he did a great job with it. That was his gimmick. That wasn't a gimmick that was handed to him. That was one that he ran with.
And how far did he get?
Well, he got up to the main roster.
So does everybody else.
Right, and everybody else gets buried on the main roster just like he did. So it's hard to actually... He got over huge in NXT. They just called him up to the roster because he was over so much before he was actually good enough in the ring.
Well, I guess we'll see how good in the ring he really is at All Out.
Yeah. I guess we'll see.
Anyway, I enjoyed this women's triple threat match, and I disagree with you about not liking any of the characters. I like Nyla Rose's character. I just wish that they would do something more intelligent with her. I don't like the fact that she's a beast who can't win a match.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I have no interest in her. You can't...
You didn't know she was going to lose before you didn't watch the match.
She was a beast that wasn't a real beast at Double or Nothing. I don't... She hasn't done anything with that character yet to make me buy into the fact that she's actually going to be what she's being billed as.
I think that she had a spot in the match from her that you would have been amazed with.
It's possible. And if I had time, had more time in my life to watch all the matches, I would have actually watched it. I just didn't have the time. I had to pick and choose.
She sprang from the outside of the top rope and then went flying off with a knee strike onto Rio. Okay.
That actually would have been fairly entertaining to see.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. You might even be able to catch it on YouTube or something. You might want to take a look.
I'm going to have to look it up on YouTube since there is no streaming service where I can just go and watch the match.
All right, so what were the matches that you were actually interested in on this show?
The rest of them I watched. Everything else I did. That was the only one that I really... Because by that time that the next match came up, Arla was in bed, so I was able to actually pay attention.
Oh, well, I'm sorry about that, because you missed a decent match for a match.
For a what?
An match.
What, Daniels and Chima? I saw that match.
That's what I'm saying. It was meh.
Yeah, it was what I expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be anything that was going to blow our doors off. It was a good match done by two great workers.
It was not a good match. It was a meh
match. But two very old workers that just don't have it like they used to. There's a reason why Christopher Daniels is working so much better in tags now than he used to. It's because it hides a lot of his flaws from being an older guy. And it's the same thing with Chima. Chima's been around for a long damn time. And you could tell watching these two guys face each other. It was like watching Hogan and Flair in 2011 on TNA. It was hard to watch. Very, very, very hard to watch.
And it felt like a bit of a squash too. I mean, I thought Chima dominated a lot, like 80% of this match, and then ended up getting the win too. So.
Yeah, he did. And like I said, to me, it looked like Christopher Daniels just should maybe not be in one-on-one matches anymore. Against Amell is one thing, because Stephen Amell is not a wrestler, so he was, of course he looked good next to the guy who's never been a wrestler a day in his life. But when he was in there against a guy who at one point was a huge star in Japan, it seemed like Christopher Daniels is showing his age a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about this at the end of last year that we thought Daniels would be better off in a manager role,
right, going
forward with the other members of SCU, and we already know that he's one of the major agents backstage right now as well. So I think that, while he still wants to wrestle, I think it's going to be, it'd be better off if he was doing that sporadically and working more backstage or as a hype man for the other SCU guys.
Which is weird because Frankie Kazarian is only 3 years younger than Daniels, but he seems to be getting better every time I see him.
Yeah,
he seems like
that.
He's more athletic now than he was 10 years ago. He seems like he's more inventive when it comes to his moveset than he's ever been in his life. And every time I see him out there, he just seems to get better and better. So it's kind of hard to watch Christopher Daniels, who I've always loved Christopher Daniels. His Fallen Angel gimmick in TNA was it was great. Everything about it I loved. I loved when him and Frankie first got together in TNA and then brought that over to Ring of Honor. It's sad when you start to see the heroes that you've, I don't want to call a comparison because there is none, but Christopher Daniels, when I first started seeing Ric Flair not be able to wrestle anymore, it's kind of the same feeling I'm getting from watching Daniels out there now.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it was somebody who was a favorite of mine forever, and I never want to see them, not be able to do it anymore. But there comes a time when they just can't do it anymore, and I think we're starting to see that out of Daniels.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, and he had his world title run in Ring of Honor, so I mean, it's not like he has anything left to do in his career. So the next match was basically the MJF and Jungle Boy show.
Pretty much, yeah. MJF has proven to be just an amazing heel. It depends, I guess, on the week, but between him and Matt Taven right now for my two favorite heels, and to be honest, these are two guys that are quickly running up the ranks of best wrestler of the year. Not just characters, but wrestlers of the year too. They're putting on amazing matches whenever they're in the ring together with anybody.
I don't know. I don't think MJF has had the high-profile spotlight. I don't think in order to get in that level, and Taven is probably going to be on the outside looking into my top 5 this year for wrestler of the year. But I can see where you're talking about. I mean, it's just that MJF to me is more on the character side than on the wrestler side.
And I guess I can see that too.
What's that?
I guess I can see that too. I'm not finding a whole ton of players that are much better, and his matches themselves, his stuff on MLW has been okay. But his matches so far, he's been in a Rumble and then this match, so we haven't seen a whole lot of him on AEW. He had that one Magnificent Seven match with Defiant earlier this year that was pretty good, but that was a cluster too because there were 7 guys in that match.
I already told you there's no such thing as a Magnificent Seven without Yul Brynner. That's Steve McQueen.
Isn't that that's the Hateful Eight I'm thinking of. Okay.
And then Jungle Boy, just with his acrobatics and stuff in this match, was pretty awesome.
Jimmy Havoc surprised me. The fact that there was no weapons involved in anything he did. That kind of shocked me. I've never seen that out of Jimmy Havoc before.
Yeah, he still sucks.
No, he wasn't as good as I would have thought he would have been, given the way that he's billed. But yeah, he's a guy who needs to stick to hardcore matches.
He needs to stick to not being on my TV.
Oh, there could be that too.
I don't like Jimmy Havoc whatsoever.
I thought Paige would look good in this match, but not the kind of good we want to see out of a guy who's going to be who's the number one contender.
Exactly.
He
has not had. He did, and I felt the same way really at Double or Nothing. He just doesn't have that fire right now, and they've only got one more show for him to kind of show that he has that fire before facing Jericho for the championship. I think it's going to be a great match against him and Jericho, but I just don't think that. I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to benefit more from week-to-week television than he does from these sporadic shows.
Yeah, because when he does the hype on Best in the World or Being the Elite, when they do their hype on that, they make him look like an idiot. The whole Full Gear Challenge thing just made him look like a moron. And that's not what you want a guy of his stature to look like. I mean, he did have a really good match, and I don't know if you actually saw the match he had against Pac, but that was a very, very good match until the ending.
No, I have not watched it yet.
I recommend going back and watching it because it was actually a really good match. It made me actually want to see the two of them in action, but then of course visa issues and things like that, Pac wasn't able to make it.
Yeah, I wanted to see the two of them in action, but I think it's bullshit what ended up happening with it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think he could become the face of the AEW and easily be their top champion. The problem is I think they need to sell him to everybody as that type of guy. Right now, he looks like a guy who's just got his spot because he's buddies with the boss. Bosses.
Right, and it's not like Cody and the Bucks, who had years of high-profile matches to get them over, and then when they had time off, it just built the anticipation. This is, Paige really hasn't been in the major spotlight very much, and so for him to have those months off that they did, I think it hurt him a lot.
Yeah, it did. I mean, he's shown flashes throughout his career. His program with Jay White last year over the U.S. title was really well done. I thought he looked good against Jeff Cobb, and he's had moments where he's looked good, but he hasn't had a string of those moments where he could, like you said, take that much time off TV. He was a guy that I think would have benefited greatly from them doing a tournament to crown the number one contender.
Completely agree.
And you could have said that, okay, so the winner of Jericho and Omega is half of this title match, and then have a tournament to find out who's going to oppose them. Because you could have easily explained that those are two of the best in the history of the business, so they deserve to be to fight it out between them to see who's going to be in the title match. And then have, Page win a tournament, not show up 30th in a battle royal.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he beats Pac at Double or Nothing, not on YouTube, and then he's in the tournament and he's struggling his way through the tournament and he somehow finds himself in the finals and is able to squeak out a victory in the finals to be the champion. We got something else.
Well, yeah, because all of a sudden he becomes a very sympathetic babyface who shows a lot of heart, a lot of determination, who was already able to beat one of the best wrestlers in the world in Pac. And then, he had all that intestinal fortitude and made it through this grueling tournament where it seemed like the odds were stacked against him. Then he becomes this sympathetic character who, if he walks in then and becomes the first AEW champion, there's a lot of people that would embrace that. As it stands now, he has very little heat behind him. The few promos that they've involved him in have made him look like a moron. Even when setting up this match with Jungle Boy, Jimmy Havoc, and MJF, with the whole phone issues and all that stuff. I don't know if you saw that, but he called to demand a match with MJF, and Nick phone line kept cutting out. So Nick first thought he said Jungle Boy, so he put him in that match. Then he thought he said Jimmy Havoc. So he put him in that match too. So it just seemed, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like he is where he should be, I guess, which is what we both said here multiple times now.
Yeah, and yet, and actually another big problem with it is that it makes it look even more like it was just handed to him when he was the wild card guy in the
Right.
Battle Royal. If he'd been one of the first 5 and fought his way through to win it, like MJ did to finish second, that'd be one thing. But when you come in and you're, the 21st guy in a 22-man battle royal, that just has Golden Boy written all over it.
Yeah, and he's really it's unfortunate because he's a hell of a talented guy. I think he cuts great promos. He's a hell of a talented guy. He's a guy that is going to be the future of the business. Right now it just looks too much like he's being handed the golden ticket, right? Because his 4 best friends are the bosses.
Right. But I don't think he's going to win the championship at all out. So I think that
no, I don't either.
I think he's going to have a chance to be built up back into the top contender role, and I think a big feud against MJF would be a good step along the way for that. Well,
and I think having Jericho as the first ever AEW champion, that's kind of the last thing that he really has left in his career to really accomplish. Of course, the IWGP heavyweight belt would have been one of those things, but he's not at that point in his career anymore where he's a viable champion for IWGP.
Well, unless, Okada challenge him and then he leaves Wrestle Kingdom with both championships.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Shut up.
I just do not see Okada winning this G1.
Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin, I thought was
match.
A great showcase match. Darby Allin was a great match all around and was, another reason why Cody Rhodes deserves to be in the conversation for Wrestler of the Year. Even if
absolutely.
After only having 3 matches.
He's had 3 5-star matches.
3 what?
He's had 3, 4.5-star matches plus.
Yeah.
I seriously believe that this Cody versus Darby Allin match, even with the whole body bag hijinks, was still a 4.5-star match. I don't know if Darby Allin is that talented or if Cody made Darby Allin look that good, but I think I remember sending you a text that Darby Allin is what Jimmy Havoc wishes he could have been.
Right, and I said the same thing to my other buddy James before you even sent me that text. So you and I were right on the same wavelength on that one.
Yeah, I mean, Darby Allin looks interesting. He's an interesting character. He's somebody that is able to evoke that hardcore feeling without actually being hardcore. He doesn't need to hit people over the head with tables to sell the fact that he's hardcore. He just does it in his mannerisms. And then he's actually got some talent on top of that to where he sells like a maniac. He seems technically sound in the moves that he does do. He's a young kid. There's just a lot of future for Darby Allin down the road. A lot of future for him.
Absolutely. He's amazing at selling. He knows where he needs to be in the ring at all times.
Yep.
He knows how to draw emotion from the fans. He evokes it so well.
Yep.
And his timing is perfect. He's got a unique style in the ring, and he uses his body in ways that you don't see other wrestlers use them. He's got a great look. He's got a great style, and like you said, he's so young.
Well,
and that's he's one of those really young guys that is going to be a foundation for AEW, like MJF, like Jungle Boy, like Luchasaurus even.
And like I said, the thing that I like the most about him is that he was able to sell me on him being a hardcore badass without hitting Cody over the head with something. He evoked that, and that's something that Jimmy Havoc, it needs to have that weapon. Darby Allin, I believed he was a badass without the weapon.
Yeah, I mean, there was two spots that sold that for me. One of them was him missing the coffin drop on the apron.
Yep.
And the other was when he was headbutting Cody's hand after slamming it into the post.
Yeah, that, and there was, and I can't think of the exact move because it's been 2 weeks now since we've seen this, but there was one move where right after Cody first hurt his hand, and there was a move on the apron where he was just concentrating solely on that hand, and he was using basically every body part he could come up with to hit the hand. I thought it was another really good moment.
Right, and then right after he did that again, and Cody tried to shake him off, then he went right to biting the hand. So.
Yeah, yep, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot like Mankind would be attacking a hand. Really.
Exactly, yeah, it really was.
Yeah, and I said on the Aftershock show, because Chad said this was the best match on the card, and I said it might have been the best match on the card, but it definitely was the most important match on the card, because to me it got 4 guys over. I mean, Cody stayed over, of course.
Yeah.
It got Darby Allin over.
Mm-hmm.
It got Shawn Spears over, what happened at the end of it.
And I really hope you're about to say the guy that I was thinking.
And then MJF.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Because
yeah.
MJF comes running in. He's showing his concern for his mentor and his best friend, but at the same time he's also pushing away the best friends because he doesn't want anything to do with them.
Right.
It's a perfect example of MJF's character, and I'm very intrigued by his match coming up this coming Saturday because he's actually teaming with Shawn Spears, and to me, that's going to make a very interesting 6-man tag when, the guy that bashed his best friend in the head, the guy that he went down there to basically, get out of there, and who he was after the match, trying to make sure that security was getting out of there, and now he's going to be teaming with him in Jacksonville. Right.
Yes, I mean, just the fact that he was the first guy down there after Cody got hit, it was out of character, but at the same time, it was a perfect character arc for him. Because it wasn't, when you think of MJF, you think of him as this selfish guy. But then, here he runs to, like you said, his mentor's side. But then at the same time, and he's showing concern for his mentor and everything. But then at the same time, you could look at it like he's still trying to keep the man in power. So there's a lot of ways they can take this angle right now. And all of them could work.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and that's something I'm looking forward to is that, we talked about long-term storytelling earlier with the Dark Order and Best Friends. I think this is another example of that this is a long-term angle between Cody and MJF that I think will culminate in a big spot, months down the line.
Maybe I'm just worn out on the whole supernatural aspect. We lived through it for so many years with The Undertaker, and then, you had Mankind there for a while, and and then Abyss and James Mitchell and everything going on in TNA, and now this crap with Sue Young and Rosemary, and I think maybe that's why I got annoyed by the Dark Order thing at the beginning, because I'm just so sick of this whole supernatural storyline. that's in wrestling. It's the same shit over and over and over again.
But this is AEW's new twist on it, so I'm happy to see where it goes, and I'm not as down on that stuff as you are. I enjoyed the stuff with Su Yung.
And I didn't. And I think maybe it's because when I watched that at was it Slammiversary? What was it? Which one was it where they went? Okay, where she went? No, it wasn't Homecoming where she went to the dark side, was it?
Oh, that might have been Bound for Glory.
Okay, yeah, it was Bound for Glory. It was out of context, and maybe that's why I didn't really buy too much into it and didn't like it that much. But it to me, that whole supernatural thing was just not good. I did not like it at all. And I know you'd said that was a great. You loved it. You thought it was really well done, and it was really well done. It's just I'm just kind of over those whole kind of storylines. It's not something for me anymore.
Oh, well, see, and here I am watching the 5th season of the originals again. So
we'll see, and I still love that stuff. I'm more a realist in my wrestling. I want to see real characters. I don't want to see supernatural guys. It's not as believable as it was in 1985 that some creature from beyond could come in and use some kind of superpower. It's just not believable anymore.
Well, see, I think what I like about what AEW and Impact are doing with it is basically that they're incorporating, it's an aspect of what they're doing, not, and it doesn't take over the rest of the show. So I mean, it's basically, in WWE, the Undertaker would, there were times where he was the top guy on the show, and so it would kind of lend to every single match that there was something going on supernaturally. But in AEW and Impact, I feel like it's more that they're incorporating Lucha Underground style storytelling, and then as an aspect of the show, and then you have other things in other places. Like I said before, it's a smorgasbord of a show. It's a buffet where if you like the supernatural stuff, great. It's in this part of the show. If you want a hardcore match, you've got Joey Janela. If you want a straight old school wrestling match, you've got Cody. If you want an outstanding tag match, you've got the Young Bucks. If you want high flying matches, you've got you've got the Lucha Bros. So I mean there's all kinds of wrestling for all kinds of wrestling fans. And I think that if you just totally eschew the entertainment aspect of it, you're going to lose a portion of the mainstream audience.
Oh, I'm not saying anything negatively about it. It's just not for me.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying. I'm saying why I think that it's important to have it.
But this is what we've been screaming about for years, about how everybody seems to be the same wrestler now. Everybody, every 300-pounder's got to be able to do monkey flips. It's just there's no cruiserweights and heavyweights anymore. It's just everybody's the same. And I think I do like what AEW is doing, and for that matter, what TNA is doing too. From what I've seen from them, is they are separating these matches. They're separating these divisions, and they're making it, okay, supernatural stuff is over here. We're not going to mix them in with these guys over here who are doing the flips, and these guys are the heavyweights. It's back to the way I've always felt it should be. Not just everybody could be a heavyweight.
Right, and then when Impact does bring people in there, they're freaked out about it. Like right now going into the Monsters Ball, Taya Valkyrie wanted nothing to do with any of the other quote unquote freaks in that match, and yet she was stuck being one of the monsters in Monsters Ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was Jessica Havoc versus Su Yung versus Rosemary versus Taya Valkyrie for the women's champion for the Knockouts championship in Monsters Ball.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it yet, so.
Well, no, neither have I. But I mean, that's basically what led into it. Is that she basically recruited Rosemary to help her, so she stayed alive versus Su Yung and Jessica Havoc, which is the other part when you're dealing with supernatural things is it's a more life and death situation, and I think Impact makes it believable that she would feel that way.
Yeah, that is true. And I guess I'll give it to them. Like I said, I'm just so worn out on that type of character, and it was never a character that I was really into anyway. I like the crazy person character. I don't like the supernatural part. Like Mankind, when he was just this lunatic who was ripping his own hair out, was fun. Once he started to become all these superpowers, it got old for me. And same thing with Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt, his cult leader character was amazing. Once they started incorporating, the stupid, scary supernatural crap, that's when I really got burnt on Bray Wyatt's character. So
I got burnt on Bray Wyatt's character when he lost to John Cena at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's also about when they started with the whole supernatural stuff with him too. Was coming out of that feud. They never really did it before that, but after that feud, they started with it.
Oh, right, because they had that little Johnny, was it?
Yep. Yeah.
In that cage match.
Because it was the John Cena feud is when Little Johnny came out initially. And that's when they really started with the supernatural selling of him. And they took him away from being the cult leader that he was, that was amazing in NXT, and really sold him the beginning, maybe first year and a half he was on the main roster, was his cult leader type character. And then that Little Johnny, that's when it became supernatural, and I even started to get sick of it. And I loved Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was one of my favorite talkers of all time. But they really lost me once they started with the whole supernatural stuff.
And I think that's pretty much all he's doing these days.
Yeah, and now
from what I hear, at least.
Yeah, this whole fun time playhouse or whatever the hell he's calling it, fun house, Firefly Funhouse. It seems like it's more the same supernatural stuff. Which, again, they have a way that they can sell him as just some deranged lunatic. But it doesn't look like they're going to go that way.
And the funny thing is that, the guy that you and I kind of made fun of for acting crazy and not really being crazy, Eddie Edwards,
right?
Now has reached a level where he really is believable as crazy because things
come
across.
I'll give him to that. Yeah, he does seem a lot more like he is a crazy person now. And not just a guy who likes to swing a kendo stick. He does seem... So it only took them a year to build that character to a believable point, but I think they finally made it believable.
Did you see the Killer Cross Eddie Edwards scene in the church?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was so good. So good.
It really was. It really was. It's one thing. I mean, and I like Eddie Edwards, I think, more for sentimental reasons because I love the Wolf so much.
Yeah.
But I didn't like his Goody Two Shoes. I think he's a hell of a talent in the ring. Nowhere as good as Davey Richards was, but still really, really talented technically. But now that he's actually gone full into this crazy character, if he can stay away from the Sami Callihan trying to out-disgust each other thing, I think that he is he could easily make it into my Character of the Year award. Easily.
I agree.
With the way he's going.
And we wouldn't have said that a month ago.
No, absolutely not. He's really taken it to a whole new level against Killer Cross. I just hope that he can keep it at this level going forward.
I think this feud is a perfect example where no matter who ends up winning it or who ends up winning the match at Slammiversary or anything else going forward, that whoever goes over, the other guy's going to get over, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is the perfect feud where both guys are going to come out of this better off than they were when they went into it.
Absolutely.
Nobody is going to look weaker. It's going to look, and they didn't have to do 50-50 booking. They didn't have to do, to make this work. It just had two guys who really bought into this story, went out and sold themselves for it, and are really making each other look great.
Yeah, I mean, Killer Cross was getting the rub from Austin Aries just under a year ago, but he wasn't anywhere near in my awareness the way he is right now.
No, not at all, not at all.
So good job, Eddie, and good job, Killer.
Yeah, I will definitely give him that. That is something that I've been really, and it sucks because I don't have time to watch all this damn wrestling. And now I got to devote time for this story. And I still, it's sad now that Sammy's no longer on MLW. Makes me sad.
One more thing I want to say about the Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin match before we move on to the final two matches is and I said this on the Aftershock show, but you know how I feel about Ty Dillinger, Sean Spears,
Right.
and so when he came out there with the chair, I was like, "Fuck, they're really going with this for All Out." And then as soon as that chair shot hit and I saw all the drama, it made me want to see that match. And so I think that all Elite has shown already a tendency for me to go from not wanting to see a match to being desperate to see a match, and I think that's a great sign for them going forward.
And I hate to sound like Debbie Downer here with another negative, but there were a couple things that bugged me, and it had nothing to do with their performances. I thought both of them were great. I thought they got what they needed to do, and like you said, it sold me on a match between the two of them. But there were two things that happened. Number one, as much as we've been screaming about wrestler safety, why did fucking Cody take an unprotected shot like that?
Because he wanted to?
I get that, but come on. It's not worth it. You could have stole the story with a protected shot. It just, to me, it was an unnecessary, a chair shot, fine. Chair shot to the head, fine. But to take it that hard and that unprotected to the point where it cut him open like that, it just, to me, that was just too much.
Well, first of all, the chair was gimmicked and that wasn't supposed to happen, but the chair malfunctioned. If you watch on the replay, you can see how the chair actually springs out and bends around Cody's head in an unnatural way.
All right. Maybe I'll have to go and watch it because it seemed to me when I watched it on first shot. Now, granted, this was after I was exhausted. I was dealing with children, but it did seem to me that it looked like a hard chair. It didn't look like a gimmick chair at all.
Yeah, you can see it on the replay.
Okay.
Secondly, yes, we've talked a lot about that, but a lot of what we talked about has been more like neck trauma than back of the head trauma or front of the head trauma, not back of the head trauma. So I mean, I think where Cody took it, it's not as bad as it would have been, as it was with Eddie, for instance, or was it with Shibata slamming the front of his head on on the front of Okada's skull. So I mean, to me, it's not as bad as what we've been talking about, and if they use it in a limited manner, then I won't be down on it the way that we have been lately.
The other thing that bugged me about it is the fact that whoever those announcers are, not JR, but Excalibur and that other guy, who I still, for the love of me, can't remember his damn name.
Golden Boy?
No, yeah, who's doing the play-by-play? The one that we thought was terrible.
It was Excalibur, Golden Boy, and Jim Ross on this show.
Golden Boy. What, didn't he have a different name? Was that the same guy that was at Fight for the Fallen?
Guy. The other guy's Alex Marvez.
Okay. And Alex Marvez was the guy that really, really was trying to outdo himself?
Yes.
And came up short? Okay. But the Golden Boy did talk a couple of times about the friendship between Cody and Sean Spears. Mm-hmm. How could you do that to your friend? From everything that I've seen about the two of them, they're not friends. And they make it sound like they're best friends. And this is Sean turning on his best friend. When you watch Being the Elite, him and MJF were making fun of Sean Spears, leading into Double or Nothing. Not selling the fact that they were friends. They made it look like they just did not like this guy, like he was beneath them. So when I saw that chair shot comment after the things that they had said about him on Being the Elite, it made sense. The chair shot made sense why he would be there and hit him like that. But then to hear the announcer say, "How could you do that to your friend?" That's where it.
No, you're right about that. But I mean, he's got the job with AEW because of his friendship with Cody going back years. But Cody saw him more as like a coach type of guy rather than being a top star type of guy, whereas Spears saw himself differently. So I think this is kind of Spears, number one, getting revenge for those comments, but number two, also trying to put himself in the conversation for being at the top of the promotion rather than being an agent or a coach or something.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. I don't know. It just seemed ill-timed to me. Like it was maybe just a throwaway line that didn't need to happen.
Fair enough. And what was the other thing?
Just
the chair shot in general, wasn't it?
Just the chair shot in general. Just the fact that we're taking, I've been so high on wrestler safety, and after seeing people like Coda and everything he went through, and not only that match against Ospreay, but then the match against Naito, and then knowing what happened to Shibata and so many other wrestlers whose lives end really, really early because of head trauma, and then all those stupid shots on the apron. Which again, we had another one that Will Ospreay took in that Lance Archer match.
I'm trying to remember that spot.
It was a choke slam on the apron, but
Yeah,
the way Will sold it, it looked like he had doubled over. It wasn't as hard a shot as we've seen in the past. It didn't hit his head, but it was unnecessary to the story when Archer was just kicking his ass all over the stadium. It really wasn't a necessary part of the story. It's putting a guy's safety at risk for no reason.
Gotcha. The next match, it's kind of funny because actually watching Impact like I have been lately is actually the second 6-man tag I've seen Laredo Kid in recently. The other match was Laredo Kid and LAX taking on our boys the Rascals. So,
yeah, he's good, isn't he?
He is. He's really good.
He's really.
And I believe he's the guy that we saw face Sammy Guevara at the 70th anniversary show, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought he was. Okay.
Yeah, he was the. The 70th anniversary show, wasn't that the tournament?
What's that?
Wasn't that the 4 versus 4? Remember Sammy? They had the with Cole Cabana and Sammy and all these other guys.
So, but he faced somebody. But he faced somebody on that show, didn't he?
No, not 1-on-1.
Laredo Kid didn't.
Laredo Kid did, yeah. Laredo Kid faced somebody that we had no clue who he was.
Right, it wasn't Sammy,
but
what you're saying. Okay,
it wasn't Sammy, no.
Okay.
I remember us making fun of the fact that that Laredo Kid actually looked somewhat decent, but who the hell was this other guy who went over? That didn't look very good. Okay. I kind of liked Kenny and the Bucks coming out dressed like Street Fighter.
That was pretty funny.
That was good. That made it, and it fit perfectly with the whole festival going on next door.
Yeah, and also that guy getting knocked down, getting knocked out by Kenny when he came back on was fit perfectly with the start of Street Fighter too. So.
Yep. Yeah. It was. I enjoyed it. It was fun. That was, and the match itself was really good. Laredo Kid is amazing. Lucha Brothers. This is the second straight match I've seen where they haven't let their lucha style overtake the match.
Yeah, I think the Elite is a good influence on them.
Yeah, I do too. I think the Young Bucks and they're and it's funny because we're saying this about the Lucha Brothers, where 2 years ago we were saying the same thing about the Bucks.
I wasn't, but lots of people were. Yeah.
Where they were just spot monkeys. Then they started to get their spots actually started making sense, and then they actually started with ring psychology, and then Matt became the Wrestler of the Year last year. So they came a long way over the course of 3 or 4 years. But they started out in much the same situation the Lucha Brothers are now, where they're considered one of the best tag teams in the world, but it's just a spot fest. And I think the Lucha Brothers might be actually making that next step right now after having this string of matches. And I say string because this is not just the second match. They also had those couple of matches in AAA against the Bucks.
Well, I didn't see those ones.
So, but I mean, that's 4 matches in a row they've had against the Bucks, and you can kind of tell that it might be wearing off on them, and they might actually be picking some stuff up.
Well, I certainly hope so, for just for going forward. But I still think the long play should be Phoenix and Pentagon as solo performers for AEW once the tag team division is established.
Yeah, that does make sense, and they are starting to bring in a lot more talent into the tag team division. So.
Yeah,
but yeah, I would much rather.
There actually will be a tournament on AEW TV to determine the tag team champions.
See, they do a tournament with tag teams, but not with their big title.
I know.
Makes no sense to me.
I agree. Speaking of their TV show, Jeff and I have talked about it, and we're going to be doing a live recap show each week for AEW on Wednesday nights once their TV show starts off.
Have you heard a time slot for it? Is it going to be a 2-hour show from like 7 to 9 again, or how's that going to work?
It'll be a 2-hour show, but I have not heard a time. But I'm guessing 7 to 9 would be correct.
That would make the most sense, because that on the East Coast, that's 10 o'clock.
Right. So so stay tuned, guys, and we'll give you more details on that when it actually happens, and what the show will be called and all that kind of stuff. Because the idea that I had for it, I actually found out that somebody else already has that idea. So.
Oh man, that kind of bums me out a little. Well, keep in mind this is something too that we talked about, and we're going to actually go forward with. But we want to crown the greatest. Are we calling it top title champion of all time?
I don't know.
Because we can't really call it a heavyweight champion. You proved that we can't call it a world champion. But people that have won the top title in their promotion, any promotion across all of them. Noah. You can bring in Dragon Gate. You can bring in Ring of Honor. You can bring in. We want to get people's opinions on who they think are the best champions of all time, not the best title runs, because there's a difference. But the best champions of all time. Like John Cena, to me, it would qualify as one of the top 100 best champions of all time, even though I don't think he ever had one good title run.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I don't see how you make this list and leave off John Cena.
You can't. There's only 2 16-time world champions, and him and Flair are the only 2. So you can't have a list of the top 100 and not have those 2 somewhere on it.
I think we should just call it the top world champion, contest, and we'll just decide what that other, even if organizations don't call themselves a world title, if that actually meets the designation. Like for instance, the British Heavyweight Championship has been defended outside of Great Britain, so therefore it is legitimately a world championship.
Yeah, I think, but that's, I mean, we want people's feedback, and I want to get it out there. I put up a post towards the end of last week, and I got so caught up in life that I haven't been able to follow up on it. But I'm going to retweet it tonight and get it out there. And I want everybody listening to follow us on Twitter. Follow me at Reggie Coab, Shane at ZanmanLOP. Use hashtag Kingdom of Honor. And if you search hashtag Kingdom of Honor and you go to the latest post tonight, you're going to see something that I want to get out there to everybody, not just us, not just our fans, but everybody, because I want this to be involved by more than just us. I want to crown the greatest champion of all time. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend, a little while, maybe a month, collecting names and see if we can figure out this list of 100. And then Shane and I will, maybe dedicate a show, either if not on here, on Patreon, where we'll go through and we'll rank them and seed them into a tournament. And then from those seedings, we'll take those and we'll put up voting on Twitter and Facebook and wherever else we can put up for people to vote. And you get to decide. You guys get to decide. The fans of wrestling get to decide by voting who's going to win each match until we get down to the final champion.
And if this goes well, maybe we will do one that's the greatest reigns of all time.
Yeah, or there's so many other things: greatest cruiserweights, greatest junior heavyweights, greatest tag teams. But I want to see. I do want to start it off with this, and like I said, check for that tweet. It'll go out tonight, as soon as I get off the air here. And then, of course, check out our Patreon site. We'll have information there. We'll have, all this stuff coming up. But maybe a month or so from now, after we collect enough names, then we'll rank them all.
So getting back to the show, let me ask you this: do you think Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela would have been better for both you and I if we hadn't been watching so much Sami Callihan lately?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was a great match, and I could tell it was a great match, but I felt like I was a little bit desensitized
jaded
to the violence in it, due to the fact that I had seen Sami Callihan versus Tommy Dreamer, and Sami Callihan versus Mance Warner, and Sami Callihan versus Eddie Edwards, like you mentioned. It feels like to me like this was a great street fight, hardcore match, unsanctioned match. One of the best in the last couple of years, probably, because I still wouldn't think it's better than Gargano versus Ciampa, but
no.
But I feel like you and I watched so much wrestling that this one was probably a little bit lost on us compared to the larger base that watched it.
Well, it's hard when you see Callahan go out and put like 2 gems within the last month, back to back. Granted, his street fight with Tommy Dreamer wasn't that great, but the one that I saw right before that with Mance Warner it could very well be one of the best all-time street fights I've ever seen. Right. And then he went right out again and did it with Eddie Edwards. So it was kind of tough watching this, because here we just saw 2 of the possibly best street fights of all time, and then we saw this of 2 talented guys. Joey Janela, we've seen the bumps the guy takes, but I haven't really seen this street fight mentality out of Jon Moxley as much as maybe other people have. So for me, it wasn't as great as it probably could have been had I not seen those other 2 matches before it.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I mean, I thought, like I said, I still think it was great. I still think it's probably in the 4-star range for me. But I think that if I had, if I was going to go back and watch, one of those 3 matches, I would choose Mance Warner versus Sami Callihan every fucking time. Every time.
That to me might go down as my favorite street fight of all time.
Yep.
It was just so well done, and so the character work, the selling, the carnage, everything was just so well done in that match. And that was a free match on MLW. This is why I keep telling people to watch MLW, is because of stuff like that.
And the bottom line is that MLW is just plain and simple, week in, week out, my kind of pro wrestling. As I said it before,
they've got...
that it reminds me of my favorite all-time wrestling promotion, Global. And, if it keeps up like this, it may become my favorite all-time wrestling promotion. It's just that good.
Well, and the nice thing is...
even though I paid $40 last night for Slammiversary, and I'm going to be watching that, I find it hard to believe I'm going to like Slammiversary better than I like Kings of the Coliseum.
The thing that I like about MLW too is they're doing all this and getting us invested like this in an hour a week. They're not pumping out 2-hour weekly shows. They're not pumping out 5 hours worth of shows. They're not putting on 8-hour pay-per-views. This is a weekly show, a 1-hour weekly show. And they're doing everything with every character to perfection right now. Right. Whoever's booking that is a flat out genius. I would love to find out who. I don't think it's Court Bauer.
Yeah,
I think he's considered their GM or whatever.
He's their promoter. I don't know if he's their booker.
Okay. But whoever's booking that crap is a damn genius.
And I think I'm going to like it even better once I see Jacob Fatu win the world championship from Tom Lawler, because this weekend. But that's how I would have booked it. That's how, because you have to have, Lawler's held the title for 6 months now,
right?
And now you have to have him or somebody else chasing that monster heel that's dominating the promotion, and that's what Contra's been doing since they showed up there. All
right. So. I was going to say, Shane, you got unplugged there.
Oh, yeah, I noticed. But, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you heard what I said, but I mean, basically...
Some of it.
Lawler has been the world champion for what 5-6 months now, and
And
now
an underwhelming champion, too.
he has been, but now you have to have a babyface chasing that monster heel again, and there's no bigger heel right now than the dominant chaos razors that are Contra. So
And
I think that Jacob Fatu has to have won the world championship on Saturday night. If he didn't, I'll be a little bit disappointed, but I'll be looking forward to what's going to happen next. But if he did win the title, I'll be ecstatic because now we get to see them keep dominating, and we get to see the storyline later on for who gets to take them down.
I do want to touch on
and
MLW.
Wyatt's Warner.
I want to touch a little bit on MLW. I don't know if you have much to say about the Moxley Janela. The stuff afterwards with Omega beating down Moxley, I thought was perfect. The match itself, like I said, I was disappointed, but only because I'd seen such great street fights before this. I loved the way that they cut the show and stopped the show like they did in NXT, 2 years ago when Ciampa and where they shut the lights off and said this is the end of Fyter Fest. When we come back, it's not the show, and then came out to that street fight. I love Joey Janela. He's a guy that I really like. I like John Moxley, especially after seeing him put on a couple of wrestling matches, not just be a brawler. So this match itself, I thought, like you said, was a 4-star match. It had the unfortunate timing of coming up right after we saw those great matches.
Right. So if you're somebody like Chad, the Doc, who doesn't watch a lot of non-WWE wrestling, or at least didn't until recently, then you walked away from Joey Janela versus versus John Moxley as being the best hardcore match since Mick Foley versus Randy Orton. But if you were like Jeff and I and you watch pro wrestling and other promotions on a weekly basis, it just wasn't as great as it probably was to the mass public. Is all I'm saying.
As it would have been. Like you said, it was really well done. It was really good. I hate to say it because I really liked Janela and Paige last year at All In, but this was a better match. This was just a better hardcore match. Joey Janela just sells all over the place. He's a lot like Darby Allin in that aspect, where he makes everything look like he's shot in the face.
Yeah, I mean overall, and I probably didn't talk enough about it on this one because I was mostly looking for your opinions because you haven't really had a chance to say them yet, but to me, this is my second favorite show of the year so far. It's right behind G1 Supercard for me.
It's my third, maybe fourth. I still like Double or Nothing better than this. Mm-hmm. I like the G1 Supercard. I had issues with, so that's not in my top. I had issues with the way New Japan ran their side. I thought Ring of Honor did great on their side, but I'm assuming you're talking about Madison Square Garden one. Yeah. I think TakeOver 25 still is my favorite pay-per-view of the year.
And I don't even think it's the best TakeOver of the year.
It was one of those, and like I said when I reviewed it, this is the beauty of wrestling, and I say this over and over again, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over again because it is the beauty of wrestling. Everything is subjective. What works for me might not work for you. Every match on that TakeOver card spoke to me, where for you it probably didn't. So, of course, it's not going to be your favorite of all time or your favorite of the year, but it was mine because of just the way that every match spoke to me in different ways.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the show, I think that for that particular show largely hinges on how one feels about the American Championship match.
Well, not just that, but also
and maybe the women's match too. Definitely
the women's match, because if you take the face beating down the heel champion afterwards in a different way than I did, you're not going to like anything that happened there. Yep. Where I loved that spot, I thought that was great. I thought it was great storytelling. I thought it was I bought into what she was doing. I bought the story that she was going with, and the fact that this was the start of her heel turn. I thought it was very well done. Where you, on the other hand, like seeing a face champion be ill afterward.
Yeah, I just don't think it was in character for Io Shirai to do what she
Right.
did, or for any solid.
Yeah, so I mean, it just depended on how you saw that moment in those matches. It just really did. One thing I did want to really talk about too is, what did you give? Like you said this is your second favorite of the year.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I really liked the NXT card during WrestleMania weekend also, and I loved NXT UK too. So, although there wasn't as much on that card that I liked it. So, I mean, this is probably my second favorite.
See, and I like the 25 Takeover 25. I like the Takeover WrestleMania weekend. I like the Takeover Royal Rumble weekend. I liked all three of them. And I think all three of them, for different reasons, should be highly considered. Double or Nothing, I thought was fantastic. The 17th anniversary show, I thought, was well done, considering all that they had lost leading into it. And I still really liked Wrestle Kingdom. So.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, this year Dominion is not going to be in my top.
No.
Probably. So.
Well, a lot of it's because of the bad booking decisions they made throughout that card. Yeah. So, okay. One thing I did want to comment before we leave is MLW and just how great they are. It's Austin Aries made a return to MLW on the last televised. It was taped back in June, but on the last televised episode, and he was great. He was Austin Aries. He was the greatest man that ever lived. And Jim Cornette was fantastic in the way he put him over. About how he's got this attitude, and he's hard for companies to work with. But at the same time, he was saying that there's nobody that doesn't like Austin Aries. You will never find any of the boys in the back that have a bad thing to say about Austin Aries. It's management. It's management that has problems because he doesn't rumors that he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that, even though Cornette's never seen it. I thought the match itself that Aries had, and I can't remember. I feel bad because it's been so long. I can't remember who the guy was that he faced, but I thought the match was great. I thought his promo afterwards was just brilliant. Everything about his production on there I thought was great, and it's great to see Austin Aries back on U.S. soil.
He faced Adam Brooks.
Adam Brooks, okay, yeah.
And I was thrilled to see Adam Brooks on there as well. That to me was the bigger story than Aries being there. Just simply because we'd known Aries was coming in, but to see that he was facing Adam Brooks, and that Adam Brooks was now in Major League Wrestling, really I thought was excellent. And it's surprising that they would bring him in to have his debut match be a loss to Austin Aries, but hopefully he's there more, and this wasn't just a one-shot deal for him, and because it also could have easily been a tryout match, considering that Aries had been wrestling for World Series Wrestling. Maybe he brought Brooks in with him to get a tryout with MLW, but I hope that's not the case, and I hope Brooks is there to stay as well, because we've seen him on NJPW's Australian tours before too. And he's really a standout wrestler that I think could be something strong for that promotion.
See, okay, he is currently signed to Major League Wrestling.
Oh, he is good.
Yeah, according to his Wikipedia, he's currently signed. And I don't know enough about Adam Brooks to really. I will say this: that the match those two put on was great.
Yeah.
that was a pay-per-view quality match that ended up being on free TV on YouTube. I thought both those two clicked. I thought they put on a stellar match, and it was a nice long match too. I thought that, they did a good job of playing a face versus a face, and both of them came out as faces out afterwards. So, it had a lot of great stuff there. And of course, Austin Aries' promo afterwards about how he wants to push pro wrestling to the limits, and the whole reason he came to MLW is because they respect weight limits and all this stuff. I just thought it was just a very good all around production.
Absolutely.
Holy crap!
And I'm very much looking forward to seeing Austin Aries take on Teddy Hart for that middleweight championship.
Yeah. Did you know Adam Brooks was trained by Buddy Murphy?
I think I did know that, yeah.
I didn't realize Buddy Murphy was Australian.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I also didn't realize that he's dating Alexa Bliss.
I think they might even be married at this point.
I hate them. I hate him.
I know.
I now hate him.
Remember, she used to be his manager in NXT.
Yeah, him, Murphy, and
Blake.
the guy that's a forgotten son now.
Yeah, Blake and Murphy.
Wesley Blake. Yeah.
Let's just do a quick rundown the Fight for the Fallen card and maybe just do quick predictions. So, the main event is scheduled, of course, to be Young Bucks versus Cody and Dustin Rhodes in what absolutely is a match of the year contender.
Yeah, before it even hits the ropes.
Yeah.
And
and you and I have basically, we've decided when we're doing our year-end awards that we're doing tag team and singles matches of the year. So this match definitely has a shot to be the tag team match of the year, in my opinion. And I'm going to pick the Bucks to win this one.
Wow.
What did I do?
I'm going with the Rhodeses. And I was before I read this tweet that Dustin put out, but I'm going with the Rhodes brothers to win it. I just think that it's a story that isn't done yet with Cody and Dustin. I don't think it's going to come to a head at this pay-per-view like you originally talked about now because Cody has an all-out opponent. But Rhodes...
There's actually another reason why I don't think that's ever going to happen now is because Dustin actually has said he will never, ever face Cody in another match.
Yeah, well,
and
okay.
He said that on Jericho's podcast.
Oh, I guess I haven't listened. I've got that bookmarked. I wanted to listen to it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. But he said, this was a Twitter video that he put out. And he said, Matt, Nick, you little young buckaroos, let me say this. I respect you as workers in this industry. Your talent is unbelievable. Your athleticism off the charts. The things you do in the squared circle is awesome and wonderful. And you can make fun of me and Cody all you want. But in Jacksonville, Florida at Fight for the Fallen, this is not a game. I will power slam the both of you so hard your souls will leave your body. Remember this. And then he added, remember this, the Brotherhood is coming.
Wow.
What a strong promo from Dustin.
Absolutely.
Absolutely a brilliant, just amazing promo. And that was just reading it. That wasn't seeing him do it. Seeing him perform that could have been twice as good.
Well, yeah, for sure. I still pick the Bucks though because I think it makes more sense for them to win, especially if they're heading towards that tag team tournament.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that Dustin wasn't going to face his brother again. So, but I don't know. My pick originally was Dustin and Cody, so I'm gonna stick with that.
You know, we don't know what the Bucks are doing yet at All Out, but I was thinking the other day, you know, they lost. They won the AAA tag team titles from the Lucha Bros, and they lost them back to them in AAA. So maybe like a 2 out of 3 falls match or some kind of a TLC style match against the Lucha Bros would be the best thing there to finish off that rivalry heading into the TV show. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that would be good, but I have a feeling it's going to be more of a 3-way match, and I don't think the AAA titles will be on the line at all.
A 3-man.
What?
Who do you think the other team was going to be?
My guess is either they shine the light on Angelico and Jack Evans, or they give it to Best Friends.
Well, no, I think Best Friends is already in that match for who gets a first round bye in the tag team title tournament, though.
I thought they got that when they beat the SCU and Private Party.
No, that got them the chance to be in that match for that shot.
Oh, I misheard that. Okay. All right. Well, never mind. I take that back. So it's not going to be the Best Friends. I want to see more Angelico and Jack Evans, though.
And Helico.
And Helico, yeah.
Yeah, I do too. They're fun. Also on this card is Kenny Omega versus Chima, which is obviously a warm-up match for Kenny going into his big match against Moxley.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to walk out as the champ, or walk out with the victory here for sure.
Yeah, he has to.
Yeah. So we have SoCal Uncensored taking on the Lucha Bros.
That'll be a fun match.
It will.
I think we'll actually get to see a lot more out of Scorpio Sky to see what they're trying to do with him.
That's a good point. I would guess that this will. Yeah, I really have no thought. I really have no idea who's going to win this one. I guess I'll pick the Lucha Bros just because they're the AAA Tag Team Champions.
I'm going to take SoCal Uncensored just because they're trying to build momentum. Lucha Brothers already have it for the tag tournament, and this is really a new tag team with Scorpio Sky and Kazarian.
Fairly, I guess. I mean, they did wrestle the Briscoes for the tag titles at Death Before Dishonor, and then also they beat the Briscoes at All In. So they have had a couple high profile matches previously, and the Lucha Bros have already been on the losing end of their 2 matches so far in All Elite. So I would think
that is true. That is true. You do have me there.
Anyway, that's my prediction is that the Lucha Bros take this one. So we have the Brandy Rose taking on Allie, which should be fun.
Yeah, I'm going with Allie on that one.
I'm going with Allie on that one too. Hangman Page taking on Kip Sapien.
It has to be Page. It has to be. He needs some credibility going into his title match. He has to come out the winner in this.
It does, but I'm looking forward to seeing this match because Sabian had a great performance against Sammy Guevara at Double or Nothing. So,
and it was one person that I noticed that was one of the few people that really stuck out as missing from this card was Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, and he is on the buy-in for Fight for the Fallen. So
okay.
So the only other match list that's been announced so far. It's rumored that Jericho's going to be on the card. It's rumored that Moxley will be on the card, but this is the announced card so far. And the buy-in match is Joey Janela, Jimmy Havoc, and Darby Allin teaming against Shawn Spears, Sammy Guevara, and MJF. And that's what I mentioned earlier, that seeing MJF and Shawn Spears on the same team is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and seeing how Sammy fits in with that. Because, MJF and Sammy have similar I'm the greatest person in the world, don't talk to me attitudes, or at least gimmicks that they're going with. And Shawn Spears, we're kind of getting that feeling on him too. But this is definitely painting Janela, Havoc, and Allen as the baby faces.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to be interesting to see. I can't wait to see Darby Allin again after his performance with Cody Rhodes. I just really want to see him again.
Yeah, it's just a shame for Jimmy Havoc because now he's going to be on the same team as the guy that's already better than him at anything he could possibly want to do. And
Joey Janela, who's just a bump machine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love the poster picture that they have. Joey Janela's name. At the end of every name, they have like frayed, so it looks kind of like a scarf. And when you look at Joey Janela's name, the phrase on both his first and last name at the beginning and the end look like tassels on his tits.
What are you talking about?
The poster here for the Fight for the Fallen.
Oh, okay.
Match that shows the three teams.
Ah, gotcha.
It's on comicbook.com. It looks like tassels. It looks like he's a stripper. Poor Joey.
Maybe he is.
It's possible. That could have been one of his other daytime jobs that he was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather Penelope was, but I mean,
that's another person.
You got to make a living.
That's another person that we haven't seen yet, at all, and we haven't seen B either.
No, Penelope was at Double R, wasn't she?
Was she? Oh, she went with Janela?
I believe she was. Yeah.
Priestley's another one that we haven't seen yet.
Who's that?
Pete Priestley?
Right. She was supposed to actually be on this card. Isn't that
Right.
what Will Ospreay said?
Well, he said she was coming to the States soon. I guess he didn't say. I think he said August 31st, so I think he was talking about All Out.
Oh, I thought he said she was going to be on Fight for the Fun. Like I said, there's only 6 announced for the card right now, including the buy-in. So there's definitely could be other matches added this week.
I will say this about Fyter Fest, and I, as much as I hated the fact that Sammy Guevara wasn't on there, even on the buy-in, I love the fact that this entire show, including, was 3.5 hours. It's a perfect time. The perfect timing is 3.5 hours. I love hour-long shows because I get a chance to actually watch them, the hour-long weekly shows, and I love the shorter pay-per-views. I think that they can get so much more accomplished in a pay-per-view than they do in a 7-hour one.
That's the point. And actually, the pay-per-view itself was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
If you didn't watch the buy-in, you could have got out of there just watching from 7:30 till 10 o'clock.
But if you didn't watch the buy-in, you missed some good shit.
Well, true. Not a lot of. I mean, we already talked about the fact that the women's match was nothing to write home about, and the hardcore match was okay, but it wasn't. You literally wouldn't have missed much if you didn't see it.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't have missed much, but I liked Michael Kazawa's character in there. I found that very entertaining. But then again, you were already to the Michael Nakazawa stuff before he even stepped into a ring.
What?
You were already sick of it from being the Elite. I loved those Michael Nakazawa skits.
Yes, you did, because you're retarded. Never mind.
And but that opening 6-man match, or that opening 3-way triple threat tag match, was really well done. Really good. I enjoyed that a lot. So.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, if you wanted to only watch the main show, you only had 2.5 hours of stuff to watch. So.
Which is perfect. I mean, the show started at what, 7 o'clock, or was it 8? 7. It started at 7. It was done by 9:30. Plenty of time, and it's a Saturday night, so you still got time to go out and do whatever you got to do if you're into that kind of stuff, or you didn't get worn out by watching all day wrestling.
Yeah, and actually, if you only watch the official show,
it was 2 hours.
It was only 2 hours.
Well, and it was nice too, because by the time we got to Janela versus Moxley, I wasn't worn out like I've been with so many other pay-per-views lately.
Right.
I was still fresh and ready to go, and I think I probably enjoyed it a lot more than I would have had I sat through 5 hours of pay-per-view by that point. That's one credit that I've always given NXT too, is they keep their pay-per-views at about 2.5 hours. 5 matches, that's all you need.
Yeah. As long as one of them doesn't involve Tyler Breeze, then you're good. had to get that one last shot in there. So.
Speaking of which, did you see Juice Robinson in the G1?
Juice Robinson, he hasn't had a G1 match yet.
No, but he was in a tag match before the Ospreay one. Did you watch any of the tag matches?
I did watch that, yeah. What about it?
I just caught the tail end. Did you notice how his beard is longer than his hair used to be?
I did not, no.
That dude is a woolly mammoth. He grows hair faster than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
Even Sonata?
Yeah. Sonata took quite a few months to grow the beard the way he did. It looked like Juice was just starting to grow this in his last match against Moxley, which was, 2 months ago?
Not even.
Yeah, well, it was the week before Dominion, so 3 days before Dominion, so it was not even a month ago. Oh, just over a month ago. And now he must have gotten beard extensions. Seriously, he's got a pretty good beard going.
Speaking of Sonata, he was actually featured on the June 28th Impact's what is it called,
their throwback thing.
Whatever that segment is called, where he was in six-man ladder match to defend his X Division championship.
I realized he was X Division champion.
Yeah.
I
He was
do.
in there against the Wolves, Crazy Steve, and a few other guys.
Part of me really enjoys the nostalgia with them showing that throwback match. But part of me thinks that maybe if you're going to do that, why don't you just cut a half hour off your runtime and have a show that's more condensed and doesn't wear people out?
Well, it doesn't wear me out, and first of all, and secondly, I think they're trying to sell people on buying their Impact Plus service.
If you don't have their Impact Plus service, just get it for the Asylum years.
That's true.
You could. I would easily pay $9 a month just to watch the Asylum years.
What was I gonna say? Oh, this is now we have now successfully gone 3 weeks in a row mentioning Crazy Steve on our show. So.
Oh dear sweet Jesus! At least you didn't mention the other guy again.
Who, Vampiro?
Ah, you son of a bitch! You just ruined my night.
Dare accepted and completed.
Just a couple of notes here, guys. This is going to be our new time slot. We're moving to 7:30. It works out better for me, except when I have my kid, I'm able to get him into bed at a decent time because he goes to bed before we start. It also is just easier for us because it gives us time to get back home from work and unwind, since we do still have jobs, because as much as we want this to become our living, we still haven't gotten enough. We don't make enough on it. Do we make anything on it? No.
Just in terms of enjoyment, no actual monetary gain.
But a way that you could support us so that maybe someday we could afford to do all this and not keep going backwards every single year, and that actually, or every single week. Yeah. And that is actually brings me to a good point here, is that you can come to our Patreon site, www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. And now we have another Patreon this last week who just pledged $5, which gets her the archive tier, and that $5 does help us out quite a bit. We send 20% of it goes to Patreon, 20% goes to charity. The rest we're putting back into the show to provide as much content. We got Kathy67 and Ryan as our Patreon members this month or this week, and anybody that wants to become a Patreon, support us, by all means head there. Again, that's www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor, and we do exclusive things for Patreon members. Like we've said before about our I don't know, what are we calling it, pop culture show, that is in our second tier, and then our third tier is our Wrecked with Wrestlers series, which is another really fun thing that we're doing. And then our other big thing is YouTube. And as you've noticed, you go to youtube.com/Kingdom of Honor. If you search Kingdom of Honor, it does take a little bit longer to find, but I go through and make sure that Kingdom of Honor is listed in all the posts, and both Shane and I kind of pop in there from time to time whenever we've got something to talk about. So it's not like we're doing it every single week or every other day or anything. We just, whenever something crosses our mind that we kind of want to vent about, and we've still got 3-4 days before the show, we pop on YouTube and do it. And that's another way that you can get a hold of us. Of course, Twitter, I mentioned that earlier, at Regi Co-op and at ZanmanLOP. Best thing to do is do the hashtag Kingdom of Honor and go to the latest post there. You can see all the latest stuff that's happening and find us both. And, of course, our Facebook, which is facebook.com/Kingdom of Honor, or just search Kingdom of Honor in the search bars. First it comes up. It's a skull wearing a crown in front of a ring. And we do have our Gmail site, our Gmail that's set up too, in case you want to go a little bit longer than 240 characters or don't feel like using Facebook Messenger. You can email us at it's kingdomofhonor123@gmail.com. I think that is all the social media plugs. I don't know. We keep adding more and more every time we turn around. But for the meantime, we're just going to call that quits. Also, check out Twitter, especially soon, and retweet this as much as you can, because it's something that I really want us to get up and running so that we can crown. It'd be nice if we could get everybody, including the promotions involved in this too, because it'd be nice to find out who the fans think is the greatest heavyweight or the greatest world champion of all time.
Absolutely, and we know for sure it's not Jay Lethal.
Hey, there might be a Ring of Honor groundswell that does come up and crown him the best.
Well, then they need to look further back.
To be honest, I don't even know if he's going to make the top 100 list. It's all up to our fans.
Absolutely.
You know, you guys tell us who you want in this list, who you think had a great was a great champion.
I'm not sure yet if Imp and I will be doing another aftershock this coming Saturday for Fight for the Fallen, so keep an eye on Twitter for that, and keep an eye on LOP always. Make sure you check out all the other LOP radio shows. So tomorrow is the Global Revolution, focusing on other non-WWE stuff the way that Jeff and I do. Even some of the other indie stuff that's even below our radar.
Is that possible?
It is. They cover stuff like WSW and Chikara, things, Dragon Gate, things that you and I just
don't have time for.
Don't have time for, and don't cover. And then on Wednesday will be Sports Entertainment is Dead with Plan. On what's the day after Wednesday? Thursday is Imp's LOP Radio Adventure. On Friday, The Right Side of the Pond. Saturday, for the first time, actually maybe this Saturday, Rebecca. I'm not sure, but Saturday it should be the All About All Elite guys, Mystic and Misfan, and then we'll be back with you on. Well, actually, on Sunday, I suppose there probably will be a WWE Aftershock show, as I believe they do have their Extreme Rules pay-per-view this coming Sunday. And then
remember, there's also an Evolve show this weekend too.
There is. All wrestling all the time these days.
It just doesn't stop.
It does not. And then we'll be back with you on Kingdom of Honor next week to talk to you about Slammiversary, Fight for the Fallen possibly, and possibly the Evolve show. I doubt we'll get the Evolve show in by then. Oh, and also we'll talk to you about Kings of the Coliseum for sure, because Major League Wrestling is where it's at these days. Until next time, that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time, and we'll catch you next week. Long days, pleasant nights.
Goodbye.